Welcome everyone to another Khan Academy tutorial on West Explains Best. This is Mr. West and I'm glad to be here. Let's go ahead and get started. This is completing the square, so you might see this in Algebra, Algebra 2, and a senior level algebra course. So the question is, rewrite the equation by completing the square. Hopefully you guys have already seen the intro and intermediate version. This is the third and most difficult of the Khan Academies on completing the square. So you really need to kind of do the other ones in order to get to this point. One of the things we need to understand about completing the square is we want our equation to be set up in this way, where the constant is on the other side of the equal sign from the variables. Now another thing we need is we want a to equal 1. That means anytime we have an x squared coefficient, or excuse me, an x squared term, we want the coefficient, in this case it's 2, to not be there. So this is going to give us a little bit of a hassle in terms of trying to simplify this particular problem, but we'll give it our best shot. Okay, so again, we need to get that c over to the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this problem. 2x squared plus 7x, but this time I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, so I get equals negative 6. Now we still have the issue of this 2 out in front of the x squared term, so I'm going to divide everything by 2. So then we're left with x squared plus 7 over 2x. I'm going to put a little space here. This is the format, the template I like to use when I'm completing the square. And if you've seen the other videos, you understood, oops, why I do that. Negative 3 and then plus this template. Okay, the reason why I do that plus blank is because that tells me I need to add something to both sides of the equal sign. Alright, so the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what I'm going to add to both sides. To do that, I'm going to take the middle coefficient and I'm going to divide that by 2, and then I'm going to square it. Now this looks really messy, but really we can rewrite this as 7 over 2 times 1/2 and then squaring it. So that gives us 7 over 4, and then we square that. And really what we do is we just square the top and square the bottom. So we get 49 over 16, and that's what we need to add to both sides, 49 over 16. Okay, now this is where it gets a little messy. We're going to have to convert this 3 to be in fraction form with a 16. So I need to multiply 3 times 16 and put it over 16. That gives me, was that 32, negative 48 over 16. And then I add that to 49 over 16. Well, that's going to give us 1 over 16. Running out of space very quickly here. Okay, so I'm going to put this up here, up to the top left. So I have 1 over 16. And now I'm going to put this into factored form. That's the whole goal with completing the square, is you get it into factored form where you have a binomial squared. So in order to get that, we're going to have x, and then it's going to be plus, and then we take half the middle coefficient, and that's going to be the second term in the binomial. So that's going to be 7 over 4, as we already determined. 7 over 2 times 1/2 of that is 7 over 4. So this is our binomial, and now we can take the square root of both sides. Oops, let me do that in a different color. Okay, so we're going to take the square root of both sides to solve for x. So then we get x plus 7 over 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 over 16. Now we can simplify that because we know the square root of 1 and we know the square root of 16, so we get plus or minus 1 over 4. So now we have two possible answers. Oh, it's not looking for that. It's just looking for this step right here. I just noticed that. So I was doing more work than we needed to. This is just asking for this step, as you can see here. It just wants the binomial squared and equal to 1 over 16. So we're going to type x plus, and we need a fraction, 7 over 4 is equal to, and then 1 over 16. I'm going to just double check that. It's always good to double check your work. And we're going to check our answer. We got it. Okay. Here we go. This one's a little bit more complicated. And some of the things that are making it complicated is we have some sort of coefficient is going to be in front of our parentheses, and we're going to have the constant moved from the other side back over. So we're just going to follow the same process that we did before. We're going to make sure that we get the 2x squared plus 3x, and we're going to move that negative 2 over first. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. So it's going to be equal to 2. Also, I'm going to divide by 2 still. But this time I'm going to factor it out. Normally I wouldn't. I would divide both sides by 2 and I'd solve like I was doing in the other problem that we just did. But because this Khan Academy wants us to recognize that we can factor out the 2, I'm going to put this 2 out in front. I'm going to worry about the other stuff later. So I have, when I factor out the 2, what's left inside is x squared plus 3 over 2x. And then this is equal to 2. Okay, so this is getting a little messy here. So we have 2, and then we're going to have our x squared plus 3 over 2x, and then we still need to add something to both sides, equals 2, and then plus this something. And what makes this really kind of messy is we have this little green line that we need to fill in here. And the reason why it's a little messy is because once we put it inside the parentheses here, in order to put it also here, we have to first multiply it by 2, because this is inside the parentheses and it's showing that we're going to be multiplying that by 2. So we have to multiply that by 2 before adding it right over there. Okay, so just follow along. Hopefully this makes a little bit more sense. This is not how I would solve this problem, but Khan Academy is kind of, Khan Academy is great, and sometimes it's not great. This is one of those times it's not great in my opinion, but it is kind of developing a deep understanding of the math, so I guess it's good for something. Okay, so we're doing 3 over 2x. So what we do here is we take half the middle term, same thing as multiplying by 1/2, and then we square it. So we get 3 over 4, and that's going to be squared. And it gives us 9 over 16. So we're adding 9 over 16 here inside the parentheses. But if we're going to add it inside the parentheses, don't forget we have to multiply it by 2. So we have to multiply by 2 before adding it to both sides, because it's inside the parentheses. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, when we multiply 9 over 16 times 2, essentially we can reduce the 16 to an 8. So we get 9 over 8 that we have to add to both sides. So instead of adding 9 over 16, I'm adding 9 over 8. Now we're ready to simplify a little bit. I'm going to keep this 2 out in front, but now I can put it in factored form because we have a perfect square trinomial. So it's x plus half this middle term. So half that middle term, as we saw earlier, was 3 over 4. So we're going to put 3 over 4 and then squared. I forgot the squared term, by the way. Okay, so then we have that squared. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set this equal to 2 plus 9 over 8. We need to find a common denominator, so we have 16 over 8 plus 9 over 8. And we get 25 over 8. Now, the issue here is we want to get it where this guy is on the other side, this constant. So I'm going to move him back over by subtracting 25 over 8 to both sides. So subtract 25 over 8, subtract 25 over 8. So then my final answer is going to look like this. 2 plus x plus 3 over 4 squared, and then minus 25 over 8. Let's hope this is right. 2 x plus 3 over 4 negative 25 over 8. Oops, delete. Negative 25 over 8.